It's nice to meet you.
Yeah,
Thanks
nice
for
to meet
taking the
you.
time.
Oh, I'm so excited. I love Yellowjackets. Like I just can't wait for the finale too. But I was thinking you got initiated into the Yellowjacket family with a doozy of an episode with episode two's edible complex. What was it like,
Good.
coming into the fold with this episode?
Yeah, I mean, I actually at the time had been on the road for I think 5 or 6 months away from the family, and while I was away, I got the call to hey, they want to meet with you, and then I got the job to do this episode, and it was episode two. So I thought, man, I don't know, do I have enough in the tank to do another episode on the road before going home and seeing the family? And I thought, well, it's a second episode. I mean, it's got to be. I mean, not that anything in the Yellow Jackets world is a snoozer, but it's got to be contained. And then I remember on the plane back from New Zealand, reading the episode, just kind of like, oh no. Yeah, it's a big one, for sure. And I mean, and a lot of sort of like sensitive things to deal with, that haven't really been dealt with on the show directly yet. They've been sort of alluded to, but to really sort of like delve into that world of cannibalism finally.
And there's probably also so many like this is going to be like logistics of this like I know a lot of people have wondered online like when they cremate Jackie and they leave her clothes on, does the fire burn through the clothes? And I was wondering there had to be probably all these discussions about this that you had on
So
set.
many. Yeah, so many discussions. And of course we have to take a little bit of liberty with it all because of course there'll probably be remnants of clothes.
Right.
We sort of chalked it up to, well, I guess if she cooked long enough, maybe the clothes would have charred to a point that they might have just fallen off or been brushed off. But at some point, I think, look, the the moment was intercut with this bacchanal, like this bacchanalian thing. So like, I think we could take some liberty with the reality as well. And so yeah, there was a zillion conversations. There were moments in conference rooms where you're standing around a dummy on a table and you're all asking each other these kind of like ludicrous questions that you never thought you'd ever ask another person before, like, what do you think? Is it too much if there's a cavity in in the dummy Jackie's face that we fill with meat that somebody then just starts to eat? Like, is that
Oh my
is that too
gosh.
much? And so it was a lot of discussing what's too far and what's real and what feels right. And so yeah, so Shauna approaches the body with more trepidation than everybody else because she's the first one to take that sort of bite of forbidden fruit. And then at some point on the other extreme, there's somebody around the body that sees that the herd is eating, and okay, I don't even need to take any sort of caution. I'm just gonna dig in. I'm so ravenous. So yeah, it was pretty unbelievable, the process of getting there and the conversations.
I bet. I just talked to Amy Paris, the costume designer, and she told me that it wasn't necessarily complete like it didn't say that it was going to be this Grecian medieval feast. It just said medieval table. So, but that you were like, what if we had them dressed up? That's
Totally.
yeah, that's so interesting to me. Yeah. So, how did you kind of arrive at that thought?
Well, I mean, first off, the writers are amazing on the show, and of course, this is such an interesting time that these amazing writers that have built such an amazing world are sort of in a place where they can't really talk as well about all their amazing contributions. But in this particular case, they wrote something that was, like in a cabin that was dressed sort of like a medieval garden. And I don't know why I just kept visualizing something that was a little bit more in the Roman or Grecian vein. I think it had to do with the fact um, that these young ladies that have been starving and really need to eat but are going to do something that's so incredibly um, unacceptable to our social norms that they would really need to sort of transport themselves to a place where sort of feasting and gorging and just being primal was also sort of like uh, elegant and sophisticated, right? It was these feasts. They would gorge themselves, and then they would purge, and then they would gorge, and they would drink wine, and it was but it was that was okay, right? And that's what they're doing is they're trying to say, hey, what we're about to do is okay. And it just felt like it, whenever I thought about it in a medieval sense, yeah, that culture also felt like it was okay to gorge, but it was kind of gross, and they were heathenistic, um here I wanted it to feel like they were really giving themselves a pass.
I
And so
almost, yeah,
I pitched it, yeah, and they loved it.
I feel like that was such a genius thing that you did because it almost like softens the blow of it. Like I was imagining this scene without that scene, and would it be harder to watch? Would it be harder for fans to process? Like it almost, do you feel like it's almost necessary to soften the blow of, hey, they're eating their friend, to have this almost not comical, but it can be comical if you think about it, like kind of juxtaposed with the real life, like eating of the body.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think it's interesting you say comical because the original music that we had that my editor dropped in, it was sort of like this interesting kind of quirky classical tune, and it kind of tonally I really loved it, and that's what I presented to the producers. And then they played with a bunch of different things. God, I hope I'm not saying something that they'll be upset about, but I think they even put in at one point they laid in "Eat It," you know, um, and I saw a cut with it, and it was quite hysterical. But I do think like I have had imagined that scene without that juxtaposition, and it feels like it would have there would have not been that next sort of revelation from the audience, that next sort of bit of, oh, I think it just would have been horrifying, just for
Yeah.
horrifying sake.
Yeah.
I think the writers were really brilliant to sort of like realize, okay, yeah, it would be horrifying, but there's some other layer that we can sort of peel back here to sort of add context to what is happening in this moment, and yeah, they're pretty terrific writers.
Yeah. I need to ask you about the moment leading up to that scene though, with Natalie and Travis's sex scene, which seems to be connected in some way. And I was wondering, like, as a director, how did you think one affected the other, and like, in kind of telling the story of how, we watch the sex scene and then it's like, okay, we're going right into this. Like, did they kind of connect to each other in some way?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think what was interesting to me was there's this kind of um, perfect storm that was happening at this moment in the script, um, and I think this idea that playing with the elements like the wind that seemed to be wanting them to eat Jackie, right? That there was sort of like a supernatural element that was transpiring, and I think trying to play all these things in parallel helped underline that a little bit. I think even I can't remember in the actual final edit that aired, but I believe there are moments where in the scene with Travis and Natalie and Lottie, the candles are blowing a little bit because the wind is penetrating that room, or at least that was my intention. And we put her in that kind of baptismal dress that she wore when she was baptized last season, and so it had some flow to it. That last moment where she sort of is standing in the corner of the room and crosses was something that I sort of added into the sequence. It wasn't I think they'd originally written that it ended with her sort of like in this pose holding Travis in her arms, and I thought I thought there needed to be one extra level of this sort of experience he was having. And putting her in the corner allowed her then to cross the room. And so you had that baptismal dress sort of like flapping with the wind. So the idea being is trying to tie what was happening with them into what was happening in the forest, what was happening with the entire group of Yellowjackets, that there was something. Now, was it really supernatural? I don't know, but there was something that was driving them all to this place.
Yeah, it's really effective. It's such a like the whole sequence, the whole ending. I could not sleep that night after watching it.
Oh
I was
man, I'm
so disturbed.
sorry.
So that's yeah, all your fault.
Yeah.
Um, but you have another episode though that deals with a team member death. This time Crystal,
Hmm.
also known as Kristen. And I realized it was really like it was Crystal or Misty in this episode because if Crystal would go back and tell everybody, Misty probably would die. But I keep watching this scene over and over again. Do you think that Crystal was stricken by fear of Misty when she slipped, or did she just slip? It was such a a moment that really takes your breath away, just like the other episode. So
Well, thank you. I'm glad I took your breath away. There was some discussion at some point about whether or not we should imply that maybe Misty pushed her. Um, but I think that's the wrong. I think that would have been the wrong message to send to the audience, because I don't think Misty is a. I know in season one, adult Misty obviously kills the investigator, right? Um, but I don't think in this moment, and I think in general, I don't think Misty's a killer. I think she's just she wants to be loved, right? That's the whole point. She's starved for affection, and when she finally gets it, she misinterprets the signals. She thinks she has the the sort of cone of silence that would allow her to share something so personal with Crystal that she lets it slip. So, but I don't think she's a killer. I think she wants to threaten Crystal, but I do just think Crystal was so scared at that moment that she slipped off the edge, and Misty was truly horrified by what happened. But I hope it came through that I think Misty's a fixer.
yeah,
Did you take that BuzzFeed? They had a BuzzFeed test
yes,
last season. Yeah, what did you end
yes.
up being?
What
Do you
did I think I
remember?
did end up being Misty.
Yeah, I was a Misty,
Yeah,
so I can really relate. So I think I think Misty compartmentalizes really well, right?
yeah,
Gets to the bottom of that cliff and she's like horrified. Oh my God, this isn't what I want to have happened, but it happened. Okay, it happened. All right. Well, they're gonna think it was me,
right, yeah,
right? Oh, okay. It's snowing. She's getting covered by snow. Oh, perfect. And so that's what I think is so unbelievable about her character, is that capacity to compartmentalize and fix. And yeah, and obviously we see that in a great way in this subsequent episode when the baby's born.
I almost feel like it's like Crystal is like the point of no return for her as a character, where it's like she has these sociopathic tendencies, like, or even when we first meet her, she's like drowning a rat in the pool, like in the first episode, I think. So she has those tendencies, but here it's like Crystal brought out the best in her, and then now it's like she's gone. It's like there's no almost like this was it. This was the thread of humanity keeping her like more uh emotional and grounded.
That's an interesting perspective, because, yeah, like thinking about this was the first sort of real friendship
Yeah.
that we see her having. And I guess the question is, like, from 1997, whenever they get out, rescued, um, till we see them pick up in present day, what other friendships did she have?
Yeah,
Yeah, so
right.
maybe to your point, maybe this was the last sort of real opportunity she might have ever had to have a genuine friendship with somebody that sort of got her.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's how I feel. Oh, it's
yeah.
so sad. One last question. You at least get to do some comedy in these dark episodes. I loved the adult Shauna. trying to pretend she's having an affair with Randy. Did you enjoy some of these lighter scenes? Like, and did they kind of lighten the mood with such dark material?
Oh yeah. I mean, first off, Melanie's got great comic timing.
She's so
I
funny in
mean,
that episode.
I feel like she can turn it pretty much anything into, um, and it's never, she's never turning it into a joke. It's,
Right.
there's humor behind it,
Yeah.
and it's amazing. And yeah, I had a blast with it. I think without the juxtaposition of that humor, this would be a pretty morbid show to watch,
And it's
and I don't.
acknowledging the ridiculousness of it too, that like, I mean, they constantly are like, go ahead, do the, the way she tells Randy, get in the bathroom, do like, it's really funny.
Oh yeah, and there was a whole little bit of that scene I think that got excised too that was funny as well. I mean, I think of course then Sarah Kuso coming in there and taking the condom out of the trash and then smelling it,
Oh,
like
I know.
it's great. It's
Yeah.
really great. And yeah, it's all with a little bit of a wink. And I think that's what is so attractive about this series is that it builds that wink into it all. And so you can spend an hour or more because I'm sure people are spending several hours once they get hooked watching the show, watching something that is pretty dark. I tend often spend a lot of time on shows that are like pretty dark, put you in pretty dark places. So it's nice to have a little bit of air to sort of balance it all out.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, I love the way it balances that because if it were just too dark, you wouldn't, I don't know if we'd want to be in this world all the time. You kind of need that. Yeah. Yeah.
Totally. And yeah, and like would if it was all dark, would we be saying, "Oh my God, I love that Shauna."
Right.
The way
Yeah.
she cut that rabbit open on her kitchen table and like yeah and made rabbit stew for the family, like
Yeah.
would we say that if there wasn't a little bit of a wink in there? No, I mean that's what's so brilliant about the writing, I think, is that they really kind of have found that way to balance those aspects of horror and suspense and comedy and drama. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you so much for your time and thank you for
My
your
pleasure.
amazing episodes. And yeah, they're awesome. I just loved both of them. I love the whole season. It's so great. So
Oh, well,
yeah.
thank you for taking the time to meet with me. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm thrilled to be working on something that has such a wonderful fan base and people can enjoy it. That's the goal, right? To make something people can enjoy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you again and have a wonderful day.
Thanks, you too, Megan. So
Thanks.
long.
Bye.